Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Big Ten team that we actually talked about last week as well, and that's the Nebraska Cornhuskers, okay? So in terms of Nebraska, but also in terms of this show, I've said it a million times, we don't talk a ton of college football recruiting here on the Aaron Torres pod. Truth is, listen, I love college football. I love college basketball. But in college basketball, one high-profile high school player, one high-profile transfer can fundamentally change your entire program. College football isn't really like that. College football is like, you got to get 25 pretty good players. Then you got to do it again next year. Then you got to use the portal. Then you got to do it again the following year. And then you hope you finally have a roster good enough to compete with Georgia and Bama and Ohio State and Michigan and whoever else is atop the sport. So one player rarely impacts things. But I think we're seeing the rare exception where it actually might be the case, and that is at Nebraska. Now, the big Nebraska recruiting story actually happened last December, but we're going to set up what happened this weekend that kind of puts the two together, okay? So the big story at Nebraska, we talked about it at the time, and for Nebraska fans that already know what's going on, forgive me. This is more for the non-Nebraska fan trying to figure out what Torres is talking about, okay? But last December, we all remember that Dylan Raiola shocked the college football world flipping from Georgia to Nebraska. Dylan Raiola was the number one player in America, was the number one quarterback in America, had been committed to Ohio State, flips to Georgia, but right before National Signing Day. Georgia, you kind of get the sense that Carson Beck is going to come back. I don't think he officially had announced by that point. But at the same time, Dylan Raiola kind of looked around and said, wait a second now. I have deep family ties to the University of Nebraska. Again, Nebraska fans, forgive me, but for people who don't remember, this was the number one high school player in America, number one quarterback, whose dad was an All-American at Nebraska, whose uncle is an assistant coach, the offensive line coach at Nebraska. And right before National Signing Day, he said, you know what? I believe in Matt Rule. I believe in the vision. There's a pathway to playing time next season. Let me go ahead and flip to Nebraska. And hopefully I can be that guy that elevates the entire program and leads them back to glory. Well, I bring it up because this weekend, we kind of sort of saw the Dylan Raiola effect and ultimately what it means to have a player of his caliber in your program. Why do I bring it up? Well, it is because this weekend, it was really the final weekend of visits for high school football players in terms of recruiting visits for the summer. June has become a big month. A lot of kids take 2, 3, 4 visits over June, but there's only one recruiting period in July where you can go visit campuses. And all these schools had all these big events. I mean, if you follow college football recruiting at all, they had the bash here and the Friday night, Saturday night lights there, and everybody was trying to do that big thing to get elite recruits on campus. Well, Nebraska certainly had their own big event, and in the event, they brought in all the big recruits that they're recruiting, and in it, one of the players who did show up and certainly spent a lot of time with Dylan Raiola, because there were multiple pictures of them during the visit together, was David Sanders, the number one offensive tackle in all of high school football. Top 5 player, class of 2025, is down to 4 schools: Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee, and Nebraska. And while I'm not saying he's going to Nebraska, while I'm not saying it's a done deal, as a matter of fact, Ohio State appears to be the favorite, and it is worth noting that after the Nebraska visit, he actually went to Tennessee this weekend. It doesn't change the fact that his mere presence, being on campus, having Nebraska in the Final Four, proves just how important Dylan Raiola was as a recruit. Because at the end of the day, look, we're going to figure out in the coming weeks and months and years how good Dylan Raiola is, okay? Is he that dude that elevates Nebraska, steps in as a starter week 1, or it doesn't even matter if he starts week 1, but is he that quarterback that they haven't had in forever that's going to elevate the entire program on the field, get them back in the national conversation? Time will tell. But what is also important is that when you have a player of that caliber, and you haven't been good, it allows you to have access to recruits that bluntly, frankly, you wouldn't have access to if that guy wasn't on campus, okay? Nebraska fans, I hope you're not offended, but it's the truth. If Dylan Raiola does not commit to Nebraska, if you just get another 3-star dude, whatever, my guess is that David Sanders isn't interested in Nebraska. He's not on campus this weekend, and he doesn't have Nebraska in their Final Four. But why he does is because of the opportunity to play with the best quarterback in the class before him. And so when you get a Dylan Raiola, whatever happens on the field, we'll figure it out in the coming weeks, months, years, as I said. But what it also does is two things. One, that player, especially a quarterback or a point guard in basketball, they generally become the best recruiter that you got on your in your building, okay? Because while coaches, there's only a certain amount of time that they can reach out to players, they can talk to them, whatever. But for, there's only a certain amount of time that coaches can actually spend time with recruits, be on the phone with recruits. There are dead periods. That doesn't apply to players. So players, if you're doing it right, end up being your best recruiters. They can be in those DMs. They can be on those text threads. They can be telling kids, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're about. This is who we are going to be, but we need you to be here. And two, when it's a quarterback of Dylan Raiola's caliber, it automatically puts you in the conversation with pretty much every high-profile guy, especially on the offensive side of the football. Because if you look at Dylan Raiola, who wouldn't want to be part of what he's doing? If you're a wide receiver in the class of 2025, 2026, and you have a chance to catch balls from that dude, from the number one recruit in the class of 2024, how are you not how are they not at least on your list? How is Nebraska not in the conversation? How do you not want to get out to Lincoln and at least see what it's all about? Meet this kid if you don't know him, get to know the campus, get to know the coaching staff, which, by the way, comes from the NFL, obviously. So you have that. And then two, it's not just wide receivers, because look, you have the number one offensive lineman in America that is now on campus. And again, if you're an offensive lineman, if you're going to protect, you might as well protect for the best quarterback in the country, at least according to the recruiting rankings. Now, certainly he could do that at Ohio State. He could do that at Georgia. He could do that at Tennessee. You go to any of those schools, you're going to be part of something big. You're going to be protecting a very good quarterback. But also, you can do it at Nebraska as well now as well. So I don't want to oversell this because, again, I understand that this kid has a Final Four. I understand that most people think that Ohio State is probably the leader in the clubhouse, fair or not. But this is the Dylan Raiola effect. This is a 5-star offensive tackle saying, you know what? I got to at least go see what Nebraska is about. And again, once you get him to campus, who knows? Because that was the thing, right? I saw some videos from over the weekend. The kid goes to campus. You know what happens? He shows up at the facility. There's probably 200 fans there that just want to be there, that just want to take pictures, that just want to be part of whatever. So now you get him to campus. Now he gets to feel more comfortable. Now he knows his quarterback. Now he knows his coaching staff. Now you have a shot. And that is a shot that, I'll be honest, I don't think that you get without Dylan Raiola. By the way, should mention, and I said this the other day when we talked Nebraska, but we do have our AT Media. We got ourselves our new era, new rules shirt, baby. That is right. New era, new rules. Great shirt. AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise for that new era, new rules shirt.